Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially with my good friends, Catherine, Jason, and Dave. Catherine's a veteran from so many shows that I used to do with with Leslie.
Mhm.
And today we're just actually talking about you and Sarah Dawkins, and that kind of flipped the switch to say, well, I've got to get back with Catherine. It's funny how time flies. But with that said, today we're talking primarily about mental health because we all have a commonality there. And with that said, I'll let Catherine start and give herself a little bit more of an introduction to us and to the audience. And love to hear what you're doing and what your first thoughts are, especially as relates to your sunshine quotient. I was always very excited by that.
Well, it's fun to have a sunshine quotient that's up there, right? You don't want one that's in the clouds and where you can't see it. But what's interesting is that, and as we were talking previously, I don't think anyone is exempt from a mental dip or a mental collapse at some point, because life has a way of sometimes just piling up, right? And so it's interesting to be able to work with people to help them to build, coping skills, to build life skills, right? And my belief is that when people understand the basics of how they actually operate from the body, mind, spirit connection, that they make so much better decisions for themselves. And that's where I'm coming from. The sunshine quotient came to me pretty much as a download. It's just like, oh, okay, I know what I'm feeling and how do I articulate it. And sunshine quotient is actually a term that refers to lighting gradients in photography and radiology. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me because we're light beings, right? We're radiating light and energy all the time. So let's learn how to turn it up. I'm really glad to be back here with you, Don. And it's wonderful to meet you, Jason, and wonderful to meet you too, Dave.
Well, that's great. Now we're all in agreement that it's great to be together. Uh, I'll let Dave start with his first thoughts on positive attitude in relationship to mental health.
Well,
Dave.
thanks, Don and Catherine. Again, it's very nice to meet you, and glad to have you here on Thursday. I'll give a quick update background. My background is I dealt with post-traumatic stress for many years, and then during COVID, I decided that I wasn't going to take it anymore. I was going to do something about it. And through a weight loss program and a concerted effort with my therapist, I was able to break through, if you will, and start a positive trend in my life. And it adapted to the 4M methodology, which I developed. So kind of, Catherine, you got your sunshine quotient. I've stuck by my 4Ms, which are movement, mind, meditation, and meaning. And I think it builds a little, it seems a little related to the sunshine quotient to me a little bit there, Catherine. But to me, movement, is critical to mental fitness, whether it's walking, even for 5-10 minutes a day, just getting out in nature, outside of your, getting back to, I don't want to get into the grounding movement necessarily, but touching nature in some way. The body responds to that. And the mind can disassociate from the issues that we're having. Mind is getting with a therapist or even just journaling, talking to somebody about what's going on. Just, again, instead of internalizing, getting out with somebody else, whether it's nature, this time it's with a person. Meditation is just such a great way of calming the mind. But, to Jason's pre-meeting comments, finding your purpose, your meaning. What is it that keeps you up and getting going every morning? And for me, that's just been those 4 things have been critical in my path on over the last 5 years. And, I think, Catherine, you said everybody has their dips, everybody has their lows, but how we control those lows, and if we use movement, mind, meditation, and have a meaning, we can limit the depths to which those lows go, and we don't get into crises.
Great way to start, Dave. Jason, your turn.
Yeah, great to great to be here. We have to say it right. Great to be here, but it is. I love joining in community. It's all about community, and that's we talk about positive mental health. How else can we better have positive thoughts than when we're groups together? You know, when we're alone sitting there sometimes and we go too far inside, we can allow those intrusive thoughts to like, oh man, oh man. But if you're in a good community, and Dave, and not only this, but Dave knows about the military. Your buddies will smack you around quick. Your buddies will, they're there, they're there for you. They love you. You don't say it in the military for the most part. We do, and hopefully we're getting to that point where we can express that because it is truly love. But your buddies will be like, dude, come on, snap out of it. Let's go do something. Let's do it. When they're there for you, they'll listen. Many conversations, whether it's over a beer or just out on a run, something like that. Positive attitude. We're going to talk about that today. I love it. And I want to, share a quote that Wayne Dyer shared. He says, nobody knows enough to be a pessimist. There's too much more, there's so much life out there. The universe is giving us something all the time. Let's not focus on that little bit of corner that maybe we're seeing at the time, because there is so much more to experience. And I always like to be on the flip side of the coin, because we're going to be talking about positive mental health and that. And we don't want the community that's joining us today, we don't want them to be like, oh, well, they're just all Pollyanna and rose-colored lenses and they don't understand. It's hard. We've all been there. Dave very openly shares his story about his journey and where he ended up and where he's at now. It's an amazing story to share. But you get what you focus on. So why would we come here and talk about the negatives of life? Why would we come on here and be like, oh, well, we know it's tough and let's not, commiserate with each other. Let's not collude on the negative. Let's focus on the positive. And that's what we're here today. We're here to celebrate the good stuff. We're here to celebrate and say, hey, we've all been through it. Maybe some are going through it now, but let's focus on where we're going and let's look at the sunshine. Let's focus on that. And I'll leave it there.
No, that's a great start to a wonderful opportunity here today. And just want to recognize some people. Carrie's here with his joke. The comedian who only tells jokes about cookies, apparently they thought Oreos were the cream of the crop in humor. Good one there, Carrie. Carrie has another long one I might be able to get to. Charles is here. Charles is a great fan. He's been on the show with us about a month ago or so, and from Hong Kong. And that means Charles is up at midnight to watch this show. And Charles is one of the most positive people I know on LinkedIn, very productive and constructive, heads up leadership in the largest English-speaking school in Hong Kong with about 3,200, or a lot, you can correct me. But thank you, Charles, for being here. Michelle's here from Nevada. Great to have you here today, Michelle. And said exactly, I'm sure, what everybody just said. And comes back with military makes lasting relationships, friendships, exactly. And Michelle's just really very involved today. We all have issues. There's just different. And Omar's here, our good friend Omar, who I've been on the show many times. He's been on this show. Wonderful gentleman, travels the world. Has an incredible reach, and he is one of the most positive, uplifting people I know. Michelle says, Carrie, keep focusing on looking for help. Don't ever give up. And I'll just run through the comment really quick. I can say that doing the carnivore diet for over 4 months helped my mental health. Time took care of the fact it took 35 years to get over my mom killing herself when I was 16. Now I'm trying to trust God for breakthrough. And then who do we have but our good friend Leslie Flowers? And I saw the conversation between you and Leslie was going to make sure she made it today. That brings the team together all at once again. I was just mentioning, Leslie, how much fun we had and how Catherine was the foundation for keeping everything straight. It was not as irrelevant as we were, kind of balanced us off really good. So it's always great to have Leslie. Leslie does Think and Grow Rich on Fridays, and does so much to promote so many other people. I know she's promoting this show every week. So thank you, Leslie. So happy to have you. Michelle comes back. Wow. These are a lot of comments. So happy to be here. And Shelley's here. Great to see you, Shelley. I'm happy to be here. I learn and I'm inspired by Catherine Sunshine. Well, Catherine, wherever she goes, I don't know if she can even help it at this point. That's amazing. Food is always so back to you, Catherine. Let's hear what you have to say. And so many people here to see you today.
Well, as you guys were talking, I jotted a couple of things down. I absolutely agree with you on the 4 M's. Movement and nature are really, oh my gosh, such a fabulous impetus for us to engage, right? I grew up on a farm. And we lived on the farm until I was 8, and I spent a tremendous amount of time outside. And I think at an early age, I became very in tune with, the cycles and the different natural elements. And it just, shaped part of my perception. And that brings me to perspective, right? Because when there's the up and the down to everything. And you were mentioning Wayne Dyer, and another one of his quotes that I subscribe to is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? We all live in this 360, and we have a tendency to have that habit of looking, in one direction, but it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. If you actually just get up and sit at another seat at the table and look at things from a different angle, you learn different things and you open yourself up to different things. And one thing that I always teach people, the basics of the body-mind connection, because every thought and every emotion and every action has an energetic value to it. We're all part of this universal information field, right? And everything has a value to it, an energetic value. And when you're operating in those lower depths of maybe being, if you're jealous of someone, you're angry or whatnot, you're not running at a very high vibration. You may think that you're, all revved up and spewing all of these things, but your vibrational level is really pretty much down there. And the chemical cocktail reactions in your body are the stress hormones. And we're not meant to live on stress hormones for any length of time. And so that's one of the basics that I do like people to remind themselves of, if they're not aware of it already, because it makes such a difference in how your body operates. And when you're not feeling well, life is not much fun.
So true. So true. Dave?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to build a little bit on Catherine's comments. And, I didn't live on a farm, but I did get outside. We're all a part of the generation. We lived up to the generation that got into the computers and the video games. And we all grew up where we could go outside and we could go, hey, Mom, I'll be back at dinner time. Okay. Off you went. You didn't care. You didn't really, Mom didn't know where you were. You could have been out, in a ravine somewhere and see a dead body, but nobody cared because you were in nature. And a couple months ago, I mentioned on one of the previous shows, how many times do we see kids with casts these days? Nobody's outside getting hurt. And I'm not advocating to beat kids or to injure kids or to have kids get hurt, but they're not experiencing nature. They're not taking risks and showing what life can be about. And I think that's been a twist there. Secondly, Catherine, great point on perspective. And as soon as you said, if we take another seat at the table, we see it from a different view. And immediately in my head, I went to Dead Poets Society. And while that can be a very sad movie, it has a lot of positive messages. And when he tells the guys to get up on the desk and look at the classroom from a different perspective, or to stand on their own desks, while we see things from a different light, we can understand things differently. And that allows us to understand perspectives of others. Okay, if I'm always sitting in the student's chair, I don't know what it's like to be an instructor. I don't know what it's like to be a teacher and see from that angle and get feedback from them. I'm only getting the teacher's perspective. So I think that's very, very important. And then the last part comment I'll make is you hit on diet and a little bit there. And again, I'm not going to get political. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but the Make America Healthy, again, movement pre-Robert, RFK Jr., we've got to get our diet right because we're not eating right. And that does have a direct connection, our gut to brain biome. Mm-hmm. Our healthy bacteria in our gut is gone. And one of the first lessons I learned in my process of transition from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress was my diet had to change. And as soon as it did, my weight went down, my energy went up, and I had to do something with it. So I started running. And that has been my catalyst to keep going. And if I ever feel myself get low or start to dip, I got to go for a run, or I got to walk over to the gym, not drive, but I've got to walk to a nearby gym. So that I'm moving the body, the endorphins and cannabinoids and other chemicals that we release, these happy hormones, even if I'm just, making a fist, the muscle change is releasing a chemical that's making me happier. Mm-hmm. And the more you do it, the happier you're going to get.
And I love you're talking about choice, because you make the choice for the pattern interrupt, right? Yeah. And that allows us to move in a different direction and make a different choice and choose things. And the other thing that you mentioned about diet, it's interesting because I talk about the ultimate mind diet because it's your choice of what you choose to ingest nutritionally, right? So the mind diet is, I think, right up there in importance with, your choice of what you choose to eat, what kind of fuel you use to put in your body.
Yep. Now, I will be the first to admit I'm not 100% on board with, the healthiest of foods. I have my mishaps. It's a matter of being able to recognize I've gone too far. Mm-hmm. I need to pull back a little bit to say, okay, I made that choice. I'm going to choose not to do it next time. Mm-hmm. For the next whatever period of time, I'll slip again, but it'll happen. And you just have to accept it. You can't start beating yourself up for mistakes.
Yeah, I believe one of the key elements is consistency. And doing the right thing over time will give you real results. There's too many people that get too impulsive, get too far into it, can't maintain it, fall out of it, and they flip-flop. And that has something to do with it. Before Jason, I'll mention one of Charles' comments. The greatest tragedy for any human being is going through their entire lives believing the only perspective that matters is their own. So true, Charles. And for things to change, you have to change. And with that, Jason.
I love the conversation. So much good stuff. We could honestly, we always say it, but we could be here for several hours with this one. So I'm excited and trying. Things come up and I'm like, oh, I want to say this and I want to talk about this. And oh, I love that point and I want to grow on that. And it's like, calm down, stay focused. There's a French philosopher, and Wayne Dyer shares this, but has shared this in the past, and he's gone from this earth. But it's a French philosopher, and he said that we think that we're human beings having a spiritual experience, but we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Mm-hmm. And the quote that's not shared past that he said, though, is that we have to fully live that human experience to appreciate that spiritual journey. And we're talking a lot about connecting with nature, and guess what? We are a part of nature. Right. And that's the beauty of getting out into nature, because nature is the greatest teacher. You want to figure out how your life is flowing. Look at the seasons. You want to look at about abundance. Watch the animals gather their food and eat and have plenty of and have enough. And not overload themselves. And there's just so many lessons we can go on and on. This could be a whole show in of itself. But that's the joy, is that there's so many teachers out there, and to Dave's point about getting the kids getting out and and trying things, it's about pushing boundaries, and I think that's the key. When talking about perspective, it's the same thing. If you never push your boundaries, you're never going to see life from a different direction, from a different perspective, because you're in your four walls. It's safe. It's safe enough. It's good enough. Nope. That's what I learned. I share that And when we get older, our worlds tend to shrink, and we have less friends, we like less restaurants, we try less new things. I know what I like, I know what I want, and it's like the universe is always expanding. They've proven it just again recently with a new higher powered telescope. The universe is expanding. That's the natural flow of things. So why do we shrink? You know, push those boundaries, look at different perspectives. There's happiness in there. There's joy in there. You're going to discover discovery of new things. I had a conversation with someone the other day talking about learning and about there's joy in learning because you're opening new doors. And how beautiful is that? And so just like today, joining in this new group and all these new folks showing up that I haven't seen before, and getting to meet Catherine that's been around, and it's wonderful. I'm excited. I'm happy because we're growing together. And I think that's the key.
We're absolutely meant to expand, right? I mean, the energy is this upward spiral that's always in motion. And when I talk to people, you know, and they feel like they're kind of getting stuck, and I'm like, well, the train is always leaving the station. Are you on it or are you not, right?
Yep.
And so we're meant to expand. And that the resistance to the expansion is what contributes so much to our becoming sick.
Yeah, you know, there's so much to what we're talking about, and I think the key is, like Jason said, community, having other people with you, sharing together, and you get to absorb a lot of information, a lot of strategies that you may not have engineered so well yourself. Leslie says, who is the French author of Quote Jason? At the same time, Leslie's having some internet issues, but it looks like hopefully they got fixed. Do you know who that author was, Jason?
Not top of my head. I'll share it later. But he's a French philosopher from the 1940s.
Okay, well that sounds like a winner. And you know, positivity lends itself to positivity, and you actually feel what you look for and what you anticipate. So there is something to expectation and projection. So, Catherine, why don't you share a little bit of how you got to where you are today? I know you started off in nursing.
Oh, well, I'll get to that. But when you were talking about, you know, what you think about and what you're focusing on brings you to what you're, you know, people also need to understand that, you know, that reticular activating system, right, helps us focus, right? And so what you think about, that's what it's looking for, right? So it's interesting just to know some of the basics, right? I did start out in nursing, and I went to college for nursing because nobody was talking to me about going to college, but I knew I was going, and my grandmother was a nurse, and she was director of nurses at a local hospital, and she knew everybody loved her. And I'm like, well, I'm good in math and science, I can do that. And I got to after my junior year, and I really didn't like it much. It was like, oh my gosh, I was going to college, work, study. I worked a lot of weekends at a local hospital learning basic skills, and I was really excellent at it, but I wasn't that wild about it. And I didn't have the confidence or the finances to apply to medical school, right? And I thought, well, okay, I can always get a job, and I'm going to finish this out. And my first job was at a small ICU down south, and I ended up being the charge nurse of that intensive care unit by the time I was 23. And by the time I was 25 years old, I'm in a hip to breast back brace. I bent over to pick up a piece of paper one day, and I could not stand up. And the lumbar spine had crumbled from stress fractures. And I was always very athletic and you can talk body mechanics all day long, but when the people and the equipment are all too heavy, and I'm not the only one that has this issue, right? And so I had a marvelous repair at the Mayo Clinic. I'm back in Florida, sleeping on a friend's couch. I've lost everything. And I'm about 30 pounds lighter than you see me now. And it's like, wow, okay, something is way off here. And my prescription was to wear this brace and walk at least a mile a day for a year. And I went to the beach every day, rain or shine. I didn't care what I looked like. My mantra was, this is not going to be my life. And I don't know how I happened upon Wayne Dyer, but I started listening to him on cassette tapes. That's how long ago that was, right? And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I've been through 4 years of nursing school and all of this, and nobody's talking about this body mind connection, this body mind spirit connection. I'm like, okay. So that really piqued my interest, and I've been studying this from different angles through, applied positive psychology, positive intelligence. At my tender young age, I'm back in school. I'm in a master's to PhD program in integrative medicine with Quantum University based in Hawaii. And it's a very holistic program. I'm really delighted with it. And, I have a certification as a transformational coach. And that's really my passion, is to work with people to help them understand how they operate, why they operate the way they do, open them up to choices that they do have, and help them to move forward, right? It's interesting. So many people I hear say, I inspire people. Well, I empower you, right? I can inspire you. I cannot empower you. You have to empower yourself, right? And I think that that's an important element of people, that people need to understand, because it's very much about working from the inside out and motivating ourselves, getting ourselves to move forward. And it's always wonderful to have that person as a guide and to learn from different people, though the actual change has to come from within us. And I just am delighted working with so many people. And that sunshine quotient, you can see it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter the better they feel, right? And so I like people to have the visual on that as well. And I think that it's just also understanding, we don't breathe ourselves. We don't make our hearts beat on our own. And as you said, Jason, we're very, very much a part of nature. Absolutely. We're all part of this universal information field, and we're electromagnetic, right? And your thoughts, this is so fun because, your thoughts have an electrical charge, and it's your heart that has the magnetic charge. So what you're thinking and, what you focus on is what you get, right? But you have to have an open heart for it to actually come to you, right? And so there are different modalities and I'm very much about East meets West, because I believe that there are so many positive things in each one, right? And the Western model being very much based on pharmaceuticals and fixes, I believe, because you can actually change your body chemistry with your thoughts and your actions and your emotions. If you can learn to partner with some of these pharmaceuticals, they don't necessarily have to be a life sentence. And so my work with some folks in the autoimmune arena, they have gone very well. And I think the interesting thing too, I was listening to Dr. Gabor Mate in one of his interviews not too long ago, and he was talking about autoimmune disease and it being a cultural issue. And that's really interesting because the research shows that between 25 and 50 million people in the US alone suffer or experience some sort of autoimmune issue. And 80% of them are women. And the other thing that's interesting too is about 95% of human, health conditions and illnesses are lifestyle induced. So let's take a look at all of these things, right? And take these things into account. And when we evaluate fully and honestly where we're at, then we've got things to work with, right? And then we can start making the changes.
That was quite an overview. In a few minutes, we're really flooding the zone today with all information. Someone volunteered, I guess, the name of the.
That was me.
Okay, great.
Right.
I got to get 2 answers out of that. Just the person, if you want to look them up. Charles came back with, there is something I do not know, the knowing of which could change everything. Werner Erhard. Great. Charles is just a phenomenal guy when it comes to quotes. And even when he's on the show, he's typing them out. So you get a for every time you get Charles. And also came back with the future belongs to those who give the next generation reason for hope. That's the same individual as had that. Leslie comes back with you inspire agile thought. Catherine, thank you, Leslie. Leslie's always right on the money. A lot of Michelle's here, too many to always mention, but I'll throw one in. I don't take depression medicine anymore. I restarted the chemical. Well, that's great, love. And with that said, moving over to Dave.
Well, I was thinking before you went through the comments, that was a lot to unpack, Catherine. That was a whole lot to go through. But I think I'm gonna piggyback on your East meets West, and I, personally, I always ask my dad was in the Navy as well. Our careers were pretty much lockstep, except that I actually got the orders to Japan that I'd always wanted him to get because I'd just been fascinated with Asian culture. And I didn't realize till my 20s or 30s probably the connection between Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and how we can play off each other, if you will. But that being said, meditation has always fascinated me. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the 4 M's, yes. But you are absolutely, your comment, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but we can change our body chemistry through thought, through diet, through process. But I believe meditation has a strong impact on it as well.
Yeah.
And in particular, during COVID, my therapist got me into Wim Hof method, the Dutch or Danish mailman who turned, I don't want to call him guru. He would beat me if I said that. If you read his book, he'll tell you why. But the point was that his breathing method is based on a ancient Buddhist method called Tumo method, where you can literally change the chemistry of your blood work. And it has an impact on your mind, and it has an impact on your mood, and hence your perspective and your happiness and your approach. Your illnesses will go down because you've done this thing. So East meets West, I think, is very important. And I'll go to take that a little bit to Michelle's comment of, through my time in the career in the military, I would get depressed. I'd go to my doc. Hey, I'm depressed. I'm having this trauma response to something I did or saw or happened to me. Oh, well, here's some Prozac. We're just going to throw some medicine at it. Go talk to a doctor. You'll feel better. And we just go into this sine wave of, I feel good, I feel bad, I feel good, and just throwing medicine. But I will say that since I started the meditation piece, changing my diet, changing my activity levels, I looked at my ex-wife and my doctors about a year ago, and I said, I will never touch that crap again. It is horrible for the body, and it is not the right answer. If I get to that point where I feel so bad again, and somebody says you need to take medicine, I will go back to a different doctor and say, what else can I do? Mm-hmm. Or I'll look at my own process and it comes back to when we look at happiness and what it is to be positive, you've got to go inside. What is making me feel bad? How can I take control of my own life instead of having an external chemical changing me when I know I can do it inside myself? Mm-hmm. To Jason's point, the thought that we're going with today is positive thinking. Well, if you're going to think about the negative, you're going to get negative. So what do I have to control in myself, or what can I change to look at it differently? Again, go back to your first statements about perspective. Mm-hmm. What's changing in me that's making me look at this negative when I need to be? And I know the right answer is positivity will help breed positivity.
Mm-hmm. And what's so fun too, I love meditation. I've been meditating for quite some time, and it has made a tremendous difference for me as well. And when you're talking about the breath work, um, I think it's important for people to understand a little bit about the vagus nerve. That's something that a lot of people have been talking about, reading about, and it's the cranial nerve number 10 out of the 12 pair. And when you take in that deep breath, you stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is connected, oh my gosh, to almost every organ in your body. But when you take in that deep breath, you stimulate the vagus nerve, and that also engages the calming side of your nervous system. So when you take in those deep breaths and take in several, you just feel yourself like, whew, it's totally different. To give you the opportunity to respond versus maybe that knee-jerk reaction, or lashing out at someone else, or beating yourself up about something that you thought, or something that you did, or something that you could have done better, right?
Yeah.
And that pattern interrupt and becoming more mindful and more present. I mean, when you think about it, we're all in this very present moment, right where we are, and everything's pretty darn good, right?
During COVID, my therapist started a brain treatment on me to get my alpha, beta, theta, delta waves all matched up, or at least not as extreme opposite.
Right.
But the other one she did while we were doing that is I had vagus nerve. They put magnets on my head, on my clavicle here, because this is the closest that it comes to the surface, and then it's your ribs, and it was a vagus nerve reset.
Beautiful.
Because when we get into a post-traumatic environment, our body is so tight and so wound based on that trauma, because the vagus nerve is our fight, flight, or freeze response. I always tell people when I talk to them about this is the stomach, the butterflies we get in our stomach before our speech, or having to do something scary, that's the vagus nerve going, hey, this is not what I feel comfortable with. But if we can breathe through it, even if I always thought meditation was you got to clear your mind. Well, that's like saying don't think of an elephant. The first thing you think of is the elephant. But it's not about thinking of nothing. It's about thinking about one thing. Focus on one thing, whether that's the breath, or just having some visual spot that you're going to look at on a wall and you're not going to look anywhere else. But Gilong Tubten, he's an Englishman who went to a Scottish temple and became a monk, says it's like the clouds. It's like the sky. You're going to focus on one cloud, but when the mind goes to another one, just come back to that one. But don't beat yourself up about it. Just accept that that's part of the process, that the mind will wander until you can get it so focused that you can focus on one thing. So I'm a complete believer in the vagus nerve, and the breathing process will have an impact on that. Absolutely. And even just sitting in a line at the grocery store and going, this is taking forever, I'm getting mad, and you're just going, okay, I feel better because I've started to calm my body. It's just one or two breaths will do that.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, we're bringing up all kinds of different opportunities, and with opportunity brings hope.
Yeah.
And I think, having a sense of gratitude, counting your blessings, not what you don't have, but what you do have, and what you've had, and what you could have. You're the conductor of your own train, and you determine where it goes and how good of a ride you put yourself on. And by having community, Charles comes back with all knowledge is divided into three domains: what we know that we don't know, and what we don't know that we don't know. Werner Erhard, great. And Leslie comes back with Charles Caldwell. I worked in the building where EST began, Fixed Plaza building. Well, that's the nice thing about getting everybody together in the audience and on the show is a contribution. And it also says no one can handle or should handle anything on their own when they can reach out and get the partnership and support of so many people around them. We got a new individual here. Can't really Jurado, I hope I didn't.
Tawari.
Yeah, too badly. Next generation will definitely attracted towards nature rule and strictly will be followed because ultimate teacher is nature. Nature has so many hidden secrets to success in life. And I think that's so important is to be appreciative of the things that are free for everyone, right? The sky, the birds, when you take a walk, you're just surrounded by a universe of wonderment.
Mm-hmm.
So many people take a walk and they look at their shoes, or they're looking at their phone, or they're just thinking of what they just did and what they need to do, and they forget. Charles comes back and said, Dave always thought you had a magnetic presence. Well, that's great.
Appreciate that.
Boy, we got a ton of comments. Leslie says that's how to rebuild focus and concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles says, Leslie, I worked for Landmark for about 5 to 6 years in Canada. So, what a breadth of wonderful wealth of knowledge and everything else. Jason, you've been waiting patiently. Your turn.
Yeah, so much. And like I said, this conversation goes so many ways and so long. And I don't want to keep on the point about the science part of it, but I do want to touch on it because I am trained in polyvagal theory, which deals with the vagus nerve. And it's Dr. Stephen Porges and Deb Dana took it into a therapeutic aspect. A couple things I want to say about the comments that have been made here, just to add to the conversation and clarify a couple things. The work that we do is art and science. And I think if we call it East versus West and stuff like that, and there's indigenous in the West, but true Western medicine is mostly the science. And I respectfully disagree with the panel when it's talking about meds, because I'm not an advocate for taking medicine, and I am an advocate for people processing it, using it for what's needed, and then moving on. I come from an indigenous background, and the earth medicines and things of that nature are definitely important. However, if you have something traumatic happen to you, you break your leg or stuff like that, the hospital is probably the best place for you to be. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, the saying that I use a lot is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So build these resources up, build this meditation up, build these different things, your breathing techniques and things of that nature as you go along. So when you need them, you need them. However, if you get into a situation where you're like, the bottom falls out, so to speak, it serves its purpose. I see clients, I think almost every client I see has issues with sleep. Obviously, when it comes to stress, it disturbs our sleep. And they're like, but I don't want to take anything, whatever. So they don't take anything. They struggle with sleep. They get less sleep. And guess what happens? They spiral downwards. So I'm not a doctor, so I don't prescribe anything. I don't tell anyone to take something. But, in my personal life, it's like, well, if you want to take a sleep aid to help you get a good full night's rest, and then tomorrow you could look at it through fresh eyes and you can discover what's causing it, that's the place to be. The place is not to be chasing your tail. No, I'm going to just keep meditating I'm going to hold on and keep meditating until I get better, so to speak. That's not going to get you to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to know the resources that you have. These resources come in place. Now, I don't say to be dependent on it, and don't keep adding, I'm going to go up 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 15 milligrams. That's the spiral that system will put you in. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with that. I
think that's a very important point, Jason, and I agree with you completely. Yeah. I just have found that for myself, those medicines don't work.
Right.
Meditation's not going to solve everything. I get that.
Right.
That's why we have other methods, talking to doctors, to therapists, other modalities for fixing the problems. But my point really was more of we throw medicine at everything for mental health issues instead of going, what is the root cause of your trauma, and what other Eastern artsy side of what you said can we do to help move you beyond it? So yes, absolutely. Tylenol, there are other drugs that we need go to the hospital and they're going to prescribe. From the mental health side, I think we just throw Prozac, Wellbutrin, chemicals at it instead of trying to find a root cause.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely there. And yeah, my goal is to help people to get off of those. Mm-hmm. And I do talk to clients and I say, as we go through this process, just check in with your doctor, because you might find that you need less of X drug or Y drug. Check in with your doctor, because I'm not a doctor. I don't treat, cure, prescribe, all that good stuff. That's not my role in this life. But as you fix the mental side of it, to your point, Dave, you'll find that your body chemicals, and to Catherine's point, your body chemicals start producing like they're supposed to again. They start not producing the ones that they have been producing, the stress chemicals. So then you don't need to try to balance your body chemistry, because your body chemistry knows what it does. Homeostasis is there for a reason. And then when you add these chemicals, it throws that homeostasis off. And then this is a whole other conversation, because then it's like, well, now you can't take something else because now you have to balance it with this other drug that you're taking. And then you chase your tail with that. So not to get into that conversation, but yeah, definitely. But I think it has its place in moderation. And yes, our system is broken, and they will you get that 20 minutes. And sometimes they are going to just say, here, take this and move along, kid. You bother me, is the W.C. Fields thing for those that are old enough. But I'll leave that part. But the one thing I did want to mention is about the breathing, just the technical side of it. Yes. So talking about the vagus nerve and stuff, when you exhale, there's called a vagal brake. And I don't want to get too, I'm taking a lot of time here, but the vagal brake, it actually controls your heart rate. It's so your heart rate doesn't just shoot through the roof. And so it actually slows your heart down. But when your sympathetic nervous system kicks in and says, oh, there's a lion coming, whether it's coming or not, whether it's your taxes or a lion, you think that's happening, and it releases that brake and your heart rate speeds up. So but then when you exhale, it actually slows that down. It puts the brake back on. So that's why there's the box breathing. You take a longer exhale.
Right.
And someone had mentioned, I think Michelle had mentioned about yawning. That's what yawning does. Like a sigh. You take that long exhale, and it actually turns that vagal brake on, and it slows your heart down. And then that feeds into itself, because then when your heart rate slows down, you slow down, and then it kind of just becomes there. Anyway, I just want to touch on a couple points. I think this is a great conversation. I just wanted to throw my 37 cents in for what it's worth.
There's been a great opportunity to learn and share. And I do believe the other real benefit that people have today is their ability to learn on their own. Right? You can go to YouTube, you can go to Google, you can go to ChatGPT, and you can find out more in its context that's usually missing. Right? Someone gives you a pill and doesn't tell you why or how long or what to expect. And, at a certain point, things have to come from within. You can use some support mechanisms, whatever they are, but eventually you've got to change the way you think, the way you do things, and who you're around. Leslie comes back with what's missing, the presence of which would make a difference. And then Charles comes back with, when we talk about fight, flight, or freeze, it's important to note that the same part of the brain activated by physical threats, like a lion ready to attack or a dark shadow following you in an alley, is also triggered by social threats. It goes on a little bit more detail. Leslie, I was a seminar leader, self-leader, and IFLP weekend leader in Vancouver. Leslie says, apologies to our host for being out of context. The context is decisive. And also says, forum X2 whatever. And also comes back with Charles Greenboro, Durham, Atlanta. So many comments today. I love that you know all the medical side of transformation. I realize I know very little. And together we can know a lot without individually knowing that much. So, Catherine, your turn.
I love that we're talking about being able to take a look at weaning off the medicine, right?
Yeah.
And what I have found working with people is that many of them are on multiple medications already. And you're never going to say to somebody, okay, just stop those, right? And it's important, as you know, as the transformation is moving along. All right, so what can be released at this point, right? And some things may not be released for quite some time, and other things like, oh, well, I don't really need that anymore, right? And I think that that's a beautiful thing for people to realize and experience, because that actually gives them the impetus to learn more and to do more and to be more, right? And it's empowering for them to realize these things. And I think it's absolutely fabulous that we have that capability. And also the research that's available to us that we can share with people that say, okay, this is why this works, and isn't that a wonderful thing, right? And with the expansion of the technology, the research has blossomed, so it's just wonderful. My work is very much influenced by Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton, and very much about energy, brain waves, learning to work with those. I love that you were talking about brain waves, Dave, and because when you understand that a little bit more, that's a huge plus, another tool that you can use. And I think that and also bringing up a little bit about epigenetics, and it's how we react to our environment. And that points to what Charles was talking about too, as far as threats. It's not necessarily that dinosaur or that tiger. It could be your coworker. It could be someone in your family that triggers you all the time. And how do you deal with that? But it's really our reaction to our environment that signals how our genes react, right? And so we have so many more ways to control our health than most of us were ever brought up to believe that we could. And that's why I think these conversations are so important for people to be able to participate in, to be able to hear things about, because we're all learning, and how fun is that?
Well, I think that's an important part of any healing or journey is having fun, finding the positive, finding the happy side of things, and also being in the moment. Life is too busy, life is too distracting, and you don't have enough time for attention. And just to be present where you're at is important. And I think that, there's never been more opportunities for distress, and there's never been that many opportunities for success. And not every day is an absolute, right? You feel great yesterday, and today you don't feel so good, and you ask yourself, how did the world change on me so quick? Right? And it was the same yesterday as today, and tomorrow will be the same in so many ways. But it's how you embrace it. Is what's your discipline? How do you get started in the morning? If you're mindful, if you're eating a good meal, if you spend some time exercising and working out, that all adds a value to what you're about to do and who you're about to do it with. And I think that's how showing up the right way for so many people. Michelle says, you have to be ready for an adventure. It took my brain about 3 to 4 weeks to restart the chemical in my brain. Leslie sharing some information about gritty. I hate to mispronounce people's names. But yeah, what it says is just from our conversation, and nothing was planned, nothing was scripted. Everything is in the moment, what you're thinking now. And look at all of the wonderful knowledge that's bubbled up from our guests here today, from our audience. And it gives you more things to think about.
Yeah.
Right? New things, old things that you forgot about, and how do you apply them? Dave, your mic's off.
Sorry, I had some guys out in the yard there. Yeah, this has been a great hour. This has flown by, and I'm really appreciate Catherine being on here, because I think you've shared so many great perspectives and ideas here that have got me thinking and writing notes, and everybody in the comments. I'll kind of finish with most of what our problems have come down to is that disconnection with nature, disconnection with community, because we believe or have come to feel that if I text somebody, then I'm connecting with somebody, or if I send a like or a comment on a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post, then I'm friends with somebody, or I'm connected with them. But I really don't have that appreciation of what they're going through. And when we can relate to people, I love Jason. You every week you mention community, and it really is about reconnecting. And in fact, after this, I'm having a quick, a call to lunch, but just kind of meeting up with someone I hadn't seen in 15, 20 years plus, because I've just moved to where he lived. So getting back to people and not just, relating to them on a screen is very important.
Mhm.
And that will contribute to the community, and connection will contribute to our happiness and our positive perspective and how we approach people, events that happen in our lives, animals, whatever it is you want to do, that whole body of nature that we connect with. So I really appreciate this hour. And Catherine, I want to keep this conversation going because I feel I have so much more to learn from you on this one. And I don't think an hour is enough.
Well, it's so fabulous to be with you guys too, because I learn from everybody all the time. And I think it's so important to also, that leads me to something that just came to mind. There are an awful lot of self-proclaimed experts out there. And
I don't like that word. I don't like that.
and I don't think it's good to believe all of them.
That's right.
Well, I think, Jason, you need to get your
I'm
comment.
open for whatever. I will add my 2 cents real quick if that's okay, and
Sure.
just because we're here. So yes, it's been amazing, and just a shout out to Dawn for bringing us all together. This is the power of LinkedIn Lives. This is the strength of doing this. Whether it's knowledge, growing your business, growing your community. There's so much benefit to it. We have all these people here from all over the world joining in. This is amazing. On the topic, I'll leave it with this though. We have a negativity bias. The human, the animal part of us always looking for the danger. We're always looking for signals, and we are looking for signals of peace too. But we tend to look for the negative stuff, and you have to turn that. You have to learn to switch that, and that's going against your chemistry. That's going against a lot of years, a lot of millions of years of stuff before we got here. But positive attitude. Ask yourself, how can I be happier? How can I have more peace in my life? Start there, and you'll start to see more happiness and peace in your world.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunities are endless. Catherine inspires me every time. It's been a while, but I know, and it answers that question: how did you do 900 shows with 600 in a row, 7 days a week? Well, if you could experience this every day with so many different wonderful people doing wonderful things, this is a pleasure. It's like the best hour of my day, and then if you have enough best hours in your day, my exercise hour is great. My get started in the morning is great. Pretty soon you stack enough quality hours on each other, you've got no reason not to be better for it, right? It's only when you come inside, hide in the corner, put your head in your hands, and start shaking your head that things go the wrong way. And that's the best thing to do, is get out there, be with people, have conversations, and there's so much value in it. Well, looks like we're at 58 minutes and 52 seconds. Catherine, I'll give you the last word today.
Well, I just want to say thank you. This has been really marvelous to just be with all of you. And to your point, Jason, gratitude is a wonderful perspective to live from. And so that's what I would like to share. Thank you.
Well, you all shared so much, so well. And it just came up a few weeks ago, and I mentioned Catherine. I mentioned Sarah Dawkins, who will be here next week. I don't know if you're familiar with Sarah, Catherine, but she did a year of Sundays with me. And I know you and Leslie did quite a bit of Saturdays with me.
Mhm.
What I found about LinkedIn, it's not how much you make, but how much you learn from so many wonderful people you can connect yourself with, and the friendships that one makes, they never lose, right? So even if you're not with that person, they're with you based on what they said, how they said it, how they made you feel. And it encouraged you to be like that for others. So what's good for you is good for people like you. And with that, we're right at top of the hour. Want to thank this wonderful audience. I don't think we've had these many comments for a long time. I'd like to think it's all because of Catherine, but I know it's not only that. Uh, and I'll still believe it. And Catherine's smile just kind of reinforces her sunshine quotient, because I always find myself smiling or with a bigger grin when I get finished talking with Catherine.
It's so fun.
And the same goes for Jason and Dave. And, you know, all you have to do is have a good heart and a desire to be and help with other people. And that's the basis, right? Too many people make it too complicated. They have to understand things. You know, it's like talking about medicine. Someone goes to the doctor and they say, take an aspirin. And the patient says, how's it work? And the doctor says, swallow it, right? Because that's all you need to know for it to work. Anyways, ending on a positive topic. Come back next week. It'll be Dave, Jason, and Sarah. And I made Catherine laugh, which is double the value of the program. And with that said, look forward to having Catherine back with us at a future date. And thank you, Jason and Dave and audience. Go out and have yourself a most wonderful day. And we'll talk.